We all have storms in our lives that cleanse, clear, and convert the aftermath into a rainbow. If you have the right attitude, you can grow and weather the storm. Let's talk about it now over Lunch with Stormy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lunch with Stormy. I'm super excited about today's guest. Her name is Shelley Reid, and that name might not be familiar with you, but she may have touched your life in some way, shape, or form with her community efforts and amazing philanthropic work. She has an extensive background in media and has worked for many brands that you've heard of, known of, that are well known in our society today. MGM, I think, is one of them. Disney is another. And throughout her career, she had a lot of senior management positions at those places. She graduated from the USC Gold School of Law with a master's in social ethics. She backed that up with a degree in religion and philosophy, which I think is amazing and plays in what she does in her life today. But throughout this insanely busy professional career, she's been extremely active in all community and philanthropic organizations. She's the recipient of the Association of Media and Entertainment Council Founders Award, as well as the Century City Chamber of Women of Achievement Award. She's a frequent guest speaker for both educational and professional organizations, with a special interest in topics relating to mentoring women, in particular in arts, culture, and education. All of which has led Shelley to proudly become the president of Visionary Women, a unique nonprofit community organization centered around women and girls. Their mission is to unite and inspire a community of visionary female leaders in support of causes that lift women and girls. And it is with my pleasure that I welcome Shelley Reid.
Thank you.
Shelley,
It's lovely to be here.
It's lovely to have you. I actually went to one of your events in March, and it was how I got introduced to Visionary Women. And I not only enjoyed myself at that event, but Miss Jane Fonda was there. So I was a little, girl crushing.
She was. We all were.
She's so beautiful. In person, she is so beautiful, but not to shadow her words that she shared that night. And how inspirational she really was in getting the rally of getting up out of your chair and doing something. I always say, when I'm asked, how do you get involved with something? I say, you simply raise your hand. And maybe that can be your first step. But I found that at your event. I really found the community, or the inspiration, I guess would be the right word, being surrounded by all those women and, seeing Jane Fonda, which was heroic in itself.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's the effect we want to have on everyone. And of course, there's no one better than Jane Fonda as the role model for being the true social activist. She walks the talk and has throughout her entire career. And we were very fortunate to have her. Actually, that event that you were at, Stormy, was our International Women's Day event. It was the third year that we had celebrated the International Women's Day. And of course, we wanted to have it be reflected in someone who's iconically associated with being on the edge, supporting women, and speaking up and speaking out and not being afraid to do it. And we were thrilled to have Jane. The first year we had Demi Moore.
Wow.
And the second year we had Rosanna and Patricia Arquette.
Who, oh my gosh.
Just shortly before that, when Patricia won her, I think it was her Golden Globe, got up and rather than talking about herself, talked about the necessity of pay equity in the marketplace, particularly in the Hollywood marketplace. So we have had a wonderful run. Hopefully we'll have another great personality next year, but we are loving celebrating the International Women's Day.
I had forgotten that that was the day it was on.
Yes. Yes.
And it was a celebration. There were so many activities and just engagements, but the networking was incredible for me. I walked away with some really good friends from there. So
that's great.
I
That's
thank you for
really,
that.
really great. Well, I'm glad we got, that was a big event for us. And, our other kinds of events are more programming focused, in that we have speakers, and this was really a party, and we wanted to step out and get as many people and draw as many young and new people from different communities, because we have been determined from the creation of Visionary Women to not be a Women Who Lunch group, number one, and to be as inclusive as we possibly can. And I think that's what's led to the success, that really unanticipated success of Visionary Women, is that we have made ourselves approachable, we've made ourselves inclusive, and as a result, we've created a community.
Well, I definitely felt the community that night, that's for sure. So we went through a lot of, you're very accomplished, and then your give back is amazing. But I wanted to talk about like where you were from and what your parents did, because of someone like you that's dedicated to community and then mentoring women in this time that is very much needed. Like, where did you get that inspiration? Was it something from your parents? I read you were somewhere, you were born in Canada.
I'm Canadian. My father was a lifelong Rotarian. My mother was very involved when we moved to California at SC. And, it's just been a part of our family that there's always been a sense of service. And as I get older, I learn to appreciate it more.
And what was your first, because I ran through a list, but what was the first effort that you made? And what I want listeners to know is that it always starts with something small. It's not like you walked into this and had all of these wonderful nonprofits organizations that we can talk about, the Saban Clinic, which is the free Los Angeles clinic, something like that. It's not that you walked in and had this long list with you. There had to be that first step of the interaction that started leading to, the efforts you put forth today.
Well, I've always been interested in the arts. I've always been interested in health and education. And I think I've just been fortunate. When I was in law school, someone came to me and they said, there's no Los Angeles resident ballet company. And there's a lady here by the name of Zina Bethune, and she'd like to start a ballet company. So why don't we all get together and see if we can support that and make it happen? And okay. And it was a great group of people, and we just did it and started having little meetings at my house, and we had some performances. We didn't raise very much money, but it was a lot of fun. And as you said, you just put your hand up and get involved. And that's what it takes.
It does. And it just starts with the small meetings, right? I love that that's where it began, was just literally a lunch with your girlfriends that leads to great things. And I think that's super important for people to remember and know. And especially, during this time where we find ourselves at home and we're looking for, or feeling, at least for me, feeling my passions and looking for ways to get involved. And what was interesting is meeting Visionary Women right before, we went into a stay-at-home order, and having things like that stick with me and knowing that my calling might be bigger than certain things that I do. And that's where I was so happy to talk to you today, because you have been able to diversify in your give back to communities, and a lot, with women. And I noticed on your site today, the Visionary site, that you guys had raised over $100,000 for COVID need. Now, whatever that might mean in LA, because I know you're very community focused there. How you were able to do that so quickly, and then, where you disperse those funds and how, that aligns with the Visionary Women vision.
Well, first of all, we've been fortunate in that we have a very unique model of philanthropy and visionary women, and that's one of the things that's made it very special. Our goal has always been to explore a new model, be innovative, and with those tools, make as much of a meaningful impact as we possibly can in terms of supporting women and girls. So throughout our almost 4 years of being an active nonprofit organization, we have raised and granted not quite $2 million to a wide spectrum of organizations, from the Heart of Africa to Sherry Blair's a foundation that is helping women start micro businesses in Central Africa, to the Downtown Women's Center, to Chrysalis, to LA Family Housing, to the Cedars Support Suicide Line. We've done a lot, and we were very fortunate that COVID happened, but when it did happen, we were able to go into immediate proactive gear, and we've made 2 emergency relief grants of over $100,000, and they have been, COVID relief, food distribution, caregivers, the National Domestic Workers Alliance for COVID relief, the Keck Center, Caregiver Center, the Genesee Center, most of it localized. But some of it national. LA Food Bank, the Women's Housing Program that's part of the Midnight Mission downtown. And we feel very fortunate that we're able to do it. And we just formed a little quick committee of 3 of us, and we went through all of the options because we really vet very carefully. So it was something outside of our normal grants application. If you come to Visionary Women, there's a process, and we have a committee that vets every organization that applies for funding. This we did on our own outside of that, and we were able to help people, and we're constantly posting on our website little images of places that we've been able to assist, and just so our members see, because that's our members' funding comes from our membership. And so we've been very pleased we've been able to do that, and it's very rewarding. And obviously, everyone is suffering from this, so we wanted to make sure that we were doing as much as we possibly could.
It's interesting how quickly you can make something happen without the levels of bureaucracy. Like you said, 3 women got together and you just started making it happen. It's a short period of time to have pulled it together and dispersed funds.
Well, operative word, women.
Well, thank you. Okay, I wasn't going to say. I was going to ask, maybe you have a few good men in your organization, or is it really just the girls taking the reins and going for it? That is a really good point. I believe in that. Do you have any men in the organization?
No, we don't, but we have featured men. Actually, we had a program with Brian Grazer and Ted Sarandos a couple of years ago, where they spoke about who had influenced their life, and it turned out that in both instances they had been women who had been mentors to these guys who are now illustriously successful. And we are a women's organization. We're focused on women and girls, and men are always welcome. And we do have some men that come to our salons. We have so many great, incredible, first-class, A-plus speakers. Again, we've been extremely fortunate to attract the quality and level of speakers. And so we do have men. And then,
yeah, I always feel bad. I have 2 sons. They're grown men. And I do stay involved in a lot of women movements or organizations, and look toward and forward to helping mentor girls, get them, a little more powerful than maybe they are, or maybe they just feel. And, I always remind my sons, but I still love you. Like, they're still, of course, you're a part of this. You're always a part of it. But I think there's a lot of differences in just what a difference the generation has made in the movement for equality with women, and that's cross pay or rights or education in the world.
It has, and there's been a lot of global movement, but there's still a lot of global issues that affect women, particularly in lower income countries, you know, child marriage, mutilation, gender inequality. It's still there in a very big way. And that's why we try to be as global as we can. I mean, we're a localized, smaller organization, but we do our best to be as far-reaching as possible and really check out all of the organizations that are out there. We had the wonderful Indian mystic Sadhguru speak with us, and he has an entire program in India, for example, where he's building schools, and what he's doing in the building of the schools is providing bathrooms, because they find that young girls after the age of 13, they are extraordinarily uncomfortable sharing a bathroom with the boys. And that has been the state of how it is in this central part of disadvantaged India. And when he's been able to provide that for the girls continue to go to the school. And then it has changed. They're now beginning to see the change of what it's doing in the local community. And we're talking rural, remote places of India, but still here we are in the 21st century, and that's still happening.
I think we have we're sheltered in America from those types of things. You think of something as simple as having your own space to go to the bathroom. In junior high, our most critical years, our most confusing years, to have that experience, that just blows my mind to hear that.
I know. We were shocked to hear it too, but so touched by it and so happy that, you know, in some small way we were able to participate and help that effort.
Yeah, and I think for listeners, it's important to note that you are in the LA community. That's where your focus is in Los Angeles.
Yes, we're LA based.
But your reach goes beyond, can go into any country or go anywhere to any girl. And I want to use that to inspire people who are in their community that might listen today and feel compelled to have lunch with their friends and maybe talk about something that's for need in their community and keep it small. And maybe that one idea propels you to help the world.
Exactly.
Staying on that topic, though, when you mentioned the mutilation and the other suppressions that happen in third world countries of women, when I think of how far we've come in America just in the past 150 years, the right to vote, things like that coming forward, and you hear the horrors that are happening in other countries. And we focus a lot on, ways to make our country more equitable. And, I hate that women I hate anyone's considered a minority, but, when it's used as for women, which we're, half of a gender, it's not really a minority. But as you go into these other countries and truly see, the horrific suppression, how do you even know where to choose? Like, how does that play in?
For us, because we are a nonprofit, we're very careful about how we disperse funds. So we have a committee that vets everything. So if an organization that has to come to us, everyone has to apply online, and then it goes to the committee, and the committee does the requisite due diligence, checks it out, looks at it. We try to stay in certain kinds of categories of, girls and women, and promoting women in the arts has been a big initiative for us. Promoting the female writers program at Sundance, for example, talking about more localized issues. And then these other programs come to us and we vet them, and that's how we learn about them, because some of them are really very small.
I love that. Out of everything that you've done in regards to helping women and girls, what do you think has been one of the most rewarding? Like the moment where you just felt like, this is one of my callings, I'm really going to commit. You've committed a good chunk of your time to it. Was there a moment where you felt like, I just found my stride, Because you were a lawyer, you studied the religion and philosophy. You could have been anything, and you stuck with us.
Well, I think that at the time that I was in university, for example, I was in a pretty male-dominated environment, and then I went to law school. And maybe when I graduated from my law school class, it was 42% women, but it certainly wasn't 42% of the women getting the best jobs. And I knew what I wanted to do at that time because I'd always been involved in the arts. So living in Los Angeles, entertainment was pretty attractive to me. And I was fortunate to fall in with women who were successful, who mentored me and helped me. And there were very few women at the time. I mean, Sherry Lansing, of course, was running Paramount, and I mean, she was an incredible role model. And then there were people like, Kathleen Brown, for example, who was running for political office, and Diane Wayne, who was being appointed to the Superior Court bench. These were novel things. And so there was a group of women around me that put me in, that motivated me, that inspired me, and that also helped me.
And then you decided to take the torch and continue to carry it.
Well, I don't know that we do these things so consciously. I think you do it just because it's the right thing to do, and it feels right to do, and it's easy to do. I've managed lots of departments of young executives and young lawyers, and male and female, and it's just been, for me personally, it's just been a natural thing. And everyone, it's just needing that one little push, that one little someone opening a door for you when you're young and helping you. And it can change someone's life dramatically, the entire course of someone's life. And I've been fortunate, so I just try to share that with others.
It's interesting because I've been fortunate because of a little bit of daylight and someone giving me a chance, and I'm able to, I have been able to utilize it. But what's interesting is I really didn't have, outside of my mom, but female mentors around in business. And most of my career has been in Utah, but there really wasn't, when I was struggling through, being a professional, there wasn't someone I could look up to. It seemed like they were all men in the upper management for most every job that I had.
They were, yes. Yeah, exactly. And the number of women still today, we have only 2 women as CEOs of Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
It's still, and you talk about the banking world, it's definitely a boys' world still. There's a lot of industries. We were very fortunate. We had Laura Schwab, the president of Aston Martin America, one of the only 2 women to be in that kind of position with an automotive company in the world. And amazing. What a treat that was for us. I mean, this woman is just the cat's meow. She was so inspiring. She was so approachable. She got up there and she shared with an entire audience of visionary women members her path, some very sticky things that happened to her along the way. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house. It was fantastic.
Well, those are the type of women, that, and yourself, that important as a female navigating your career, we have to look for, or I had to look for. I love the idea of the internet. Now I get to follow all these beautiful women that inspire me every day. But it definitely was a struggle, so hard to find that female mentor. But I'm grateful that I had a lot of good guy mentors.
Mm-hmm. And they're out there. I think the lesson, the takeaway is that we don't have to be like men in order to succeed. And we are genetically different. We behave differently. Madeleine Albright pointed out the other day, she was interviewed on, I think, Fareed Zakaria, and she pointed out that the countries that are handling and doing very well, New Zealand, Taiwan, Finland, with COVID, handling COVID, are all female-run countries.
I read that.
Did you see that? It's fantastic,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Even the city of San Francisco, right? That's one that they're talking about that's managed it really well. I think it's a female.
And so that what she was saying, she was asked, well, are you saying that women are better than men? She said, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that women are not used to being authoritarian. There's no authoritarian regime in history that was ever started by a woman. Women are used to being caretakers. They want unity. They want happiness. We just instinctively want to keep the community happy. And it was fascinating to hear her because, she's the first ever Secretary of State. And she came from a generation, post-World War II generation that had very few women role models. I mean, for that lady to have achieved what she did when she did is incredible.
You're right. That just gave me chills. You're right. She was all those things. Yeah. Well, I think those attributes of women that you talked about, we've been, I say brainwashed, but we've grown up in society where those were they tried to get them excluded from business. So don't cry in the boardroom. Don't, keep your composure. Don't show passion. Yeah, you don't cry. And I think that's a good virtue, actually, when you're passionate enough to bring you to tears. When you tell a story about Madeleine Albright, and I just get the chills when I remember seeing her, on TV and everything that she stood for. And didn't seem like she compromised too much, keeping the compassion and the empathy while holding that role is not easy. Through my career, it hasn't been easy. Through any woman's career, I'm sure it hasn't been easy, because I do feel like we come from a broader place of compassion, or the nesting, or caring a little bit more, and even in business, where I think it's equally as important.
Statistically, there's all sorts of studies about, how in the MBA programs, for example, and a lot of other professional programs are now 50-50 in terms of graduating classes, male, female. But the success ratio in terms of achieving in the career is not 50-50, because there's still so much exclusion that goes on. The women aren't invited to the golf. They're not invited to the tennis match. They want to go home and have dinner, or rest, or read, or be with their child, rather than go out for drinks. And there's all of these markers because we view life differently. But the one thing that Madeleine Albright said is that because we are multitaskers, we have much better peripheral vision.
I believe
that. I thought that was so very, I love that. I want to save that. It really, I thought about it a lot after I heard her talk about
it. It's really well said. And I do think that there's still the marginalization of women in a boardroom or in a workplace. And I know I've experienced it myself, where, nobody wants to be the token female. And California did a really interesting and much needed law they put into effect that said, hey, if you're running a company, you've got a board of directors, there's 5 of them, 2 of them need to be female. And you think, okay, my phone rang. Right? We need somebody on the board. I didn't want to be on those boards. I wanted to be on the board that wanted me to be on the board. But the more mature that I get, the more I realize that those laws are so important for the habits that you described. The guys go out on the golf course, the way that, to initiate the change, sometimes you got to punch hard for the change. And I commend California for that.
I think it's terrific. I think it's such a progressive step for us. It's absolutely terrific.
Yes, and it has to be done. And while there were, I know on my end, I heard always jokes or anything about whatever, and sure, they can be funny, but at the end of the day, it takes large steps like that, and the forcefulness to be included or to not be marginalized. And I know from my friends, some of my friends, that, we have some pretty fancy titles, but it doesn't change the fact that there are times in the room where you're looked past or the word is marginalized. And, it's the way everybody was raised. So you can't really come out every time and blame someone. You almost have to start educating them by showing them something different. It's almost like I don't think they know that they are doing
I don't
it.
think they know, but I think it's also turning it back to us. I think it's very important that women learn to find their own center and get to a point, as upsetting as it may be, to be in a meeting and feel like you're invisible and you have something meaningful to say and you're just passed over, and yet you should at least technically you have an equal voice, but somehow you feel like you're just not being heard.
Right.
And I think all women in business have probably experienced that in some fashion. I think it's very important that women get to a point and find their own strength and realize that we have to stop looking for that kind of approval. I think we're so we're so socially programmed to look for that kind of approval from the opposite sex in a way. And if we can just get there, much easier said than done, of course. But, I think we've all had many moments where we felt, marginalized is a word, insecure is a word that I feel often when I'm in those situations. It shakes me. And then I lose my confidence. And when you lose your confidence, then when you do speak up, you don't feel like you've really said it the way you want to say it. And it just becomes this dominant.
Right. Then you question yourself. You're like, wait a minute, did I sound stupid? Was that smart? Did I speak that right? Did I use the right grammar? All of those things that you question. I was actually going to ask you what advice you had for women, but I think you just nailed it with that. Just the vulnerability, talking about that vulnerability. I know that I've felt it. I know I can still feel it in the boardroom, in the work environment, in a room of investors that's mostly often all male.
Well, and I think that's why, organizations like ours, for example, where we've created this community, we've created this tribe of women supporting other women. And it doesn't mean that everyone in the room is going to be your best friend and, it's this big, love fest that, but the like you said, you experienced the networking. We've been very, very, my mandate in particular has been to make sure that the culture is inclusive and that everyone feels welcome. And if you feel welcome, you feel more at ease. And if you're more at ease, you're more relaxed. And then you can be more yourself and you can be more authentic. And you will then meet people and not be so afraid of it. And if you come away with what you said, you came away with several people that you think you will probably want to reconnect with and get to know. And what a gift that is.
It was a gift, actually. It's been a wonderful gift. And it's interesting because I walked into that event. I, got a place in LA in November. And I came into that event. I walked in alone. I had a friend that invited me that I had to find, but I walked in alone. And I had that moment of, oh my gosh, I don't know anyone here. How do I approach anyone and then it just all played out. And I think it was because it was a room full of women. And, I felt a little intimidated just being new to the scene, but it worked itself out. Standing in line, waiting for my drink, I met, two women that we talked while we were standing there, and then walked into one of the activities rooms where we did a handprint. You guys were creating some art.
Yes, she rocked my art piece. Yes.
So I participated in that, and it was like, okay, great.
Oh, that's great.
Great. And that the idea of it felt warm instantly. Those fears kind of dwindled away. I started feeling like I was a part of something, even though I knew no one.
And that's it. That's the magic. That's the special sauce that I think we have, and that we've worked really hard consciously to make sure that's there. Because that's what it's all about.
That's the culture.
Because if we're an organization of women supporting other women, then that's what we need to be doing. And so we try very hard to make sure everyone feels welcome and part of it and supported and, you know, getting something out of it. Besides being part of this wonderful tapestry of you know, a giving chain, because we're much more powerful collectively. You know, we're a unique business model in terms of the nonprofit of Visionary Women, in that we are membership. So if you're a member, you pay an annual due, depending on the level of membership that you have. And so we don't come at our members and ask them to donate or do anything. We rely on our programming and what we get from the gate and what we get from sponsors and what our membership dues. And, you know, we give about 98% of it away, and we give it away in about 30 days after every event.
That's amazing.
And so our end game has been impact. And that's what we've been really focused on. And so whenever we have an event, what's important to me is the person who's up there speaking to, you know, our constituents, is that you have to remember that you are part of this giving and that you are making an impact. And it's just a great way collectively to be able to do more than do it together than doing it alone.
I love that. So if folks aren't in the LA area, can they be a part of Visionary Women?
Absolutely. You know, I have a friend who lives in Austria and in New York, and she's a member of our Visionary Women. And we have several members who live in New York, occasionally are out here, not always out here to attend our programs. But please go to our website, visionarywomen.com, and, you know, anyone can join. And when we first started, it was about creating this forum of dialogue, of providing really interesting speakers. We had Sherry Blair and the Nobel laureate Gumbawe and Ambassador Sweeney Hunt on female sex trafficking. So a lot of people joined thinking they were joining for the programming, because we wanted to create an environment, a venue, so to speak, of a salon. But what we found is that we created a community, and from this community, we ended up creating the ability to be able to give and make impact. So now we have shifted somewhat. When we talk about Visionary Women, we really want everyone to know that the programming is just a perk. You're part of this giving circle.
I love it. I love that. I really do. I like how it really is. You know, I did look at the membership fees, and they're tiered for folks. So, and the idea that by doing that, you are giving. So it's not necessarily your time or your money, but there is a real effort behind what's happening within your organization. And I felt it in the room that night, and I feel it on this call, or on this podcast, or on this video chat, whatever it is we're doing. But what's next for you and for Visionary Women? What do you see the next year holding, and will things change with the COVID? You know, might you do online events now?
Well, you know, we're like everyone else trying to figure it out, but we are fortunate in that we're prepared, unwittingly prepared, I might add, but nonetheless prepared, because we have a community. And even though we love to get together in person, we have this transformational digital technology that allows us to Zoom. And we had our first Zoom event a week ago, which was part of our sort of our smaller salons that we call Coffee and Conversation. And we had the leading doctor, who happens to be a female, Dr. Goldswag, who's the head of the emergency services for Cedars-Sinai, talking about COVID. We had 91 people on the Zoom.
Wow.
And we have very big plans coming up in September, and we're going to just pivot, because it's the only thing we can do is pivot And we're going to have one of our salons. And our salons typically are, for Gloria Steinem, we had 600 people in the room.
Wow.
But our salons are typically now about 350 people in attendance. So we have something big coming up that we're planning in September. And we're going to have other membership interactions on, like we're doing by Zoom, and other kinds of programming we hope to do every month, because typically we stop and take a break like everyone from June until September, but no one's going anywhere this year, I don't think.
Right.
So we'll probably continue this, and we have such a resource among our membership. We have doctors, we have nutritionists, we have business executives, we have entrepreneurs, we have teachers, we have artists, we have a whole plethora of skills and talent that we all want to learn from and we can learn from. So that's our plan. So anytime we'll make sure you are on our mailing list, and you can join us for any of those events.
I swore I was on your mailing list. I don't know how I missed the one you just did. But for anybody listening, join the mailing list, because this gives access to everyone everywhere. Mm-hmm. So you can be anywhere and learn from these amazing women. You are an inspiration on so many levels. And the conversation with you today has been really heartwarming. You're so elegant and well-spoken, and I just appreciate how down to earth you were today, and
thank you.
How much you really connected and just shared your passion of what you're doing. And I want to thank you for being a mentor to all the girls and women. And I hope you reach thousands and thousands more through your organization. And is there any last, principles you use to guide your life, or words that you want to share with someone who doesn't, I know for me, before I, went through my career, I used to sit at home and wonder how I could become somebody else. Like, how could I possibly reach out and help, or what could I possibly do? Any words of wisdom for someone who might, outside of logging into Visionary Women and learning about connecting there, you know what I mean? And having that access during this time with Zoom, which I think is an amazing resource for events like yours, to women everywhere. But is there one thing that you might say?
Well, I think that, and I really do believe, Stormy, that this is going to happen now in light of COVID. There's been such a sharp light shone on people who are suffering, who are doing without, who are so much less fortunate. And I think the big word is being of service. And if we can all think of being of service in some small way, it's not, and service and being part of a nonprofit, there's many ways to be of value. It's not about money. It's about doing something. It's about packing lunches. It's about call up your local, especially now, call up your local school and see where the lunch packing is going on, the LAUSD or any of the downtown shelters. There's so many ways to just get involved. And whoever is interested in doing that, they'll find their path of what's of interest to them. But I think the operative word, it's always been an operative word for me, but certainly I think it's going to be the word of the next 12 months, which is be of service.
That's beautiful. I think it's a perfect note to end on. Your message today is inspiring to every woman out there. You can be a visionary right from the living room you're sitting in right now. You can connect with visionaries through Visionary Women, and you can use Shelley as a piece of inspiration to make something happen. And being of service can be walking your neighbor's dog.
Exactly.
Shoveling a driveway of, an elderly person. But those small efforts make big butterfly effects in our nation, and I think it's needed. So I want to thank you, Shelley Reid, for having lunch today, and I hope to see you in person at Visionary Women event.
I'm sorry we didn't meet. We must meet in person,
yes,
please.
And
I look forward to it.
look forward to having you back one day and hearing about the past 12 months.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Good luck and stay healthy and stay sane.
Oh, I'll do my best. Thank you. You too. We'll talk again. So, yeah, take the time to visit Visionary Women. Take the time to learn about Shelley and all the goodness that she's done. And there's many women out there that are assisting her in that. And for me, if you want to learn more, just visit stormysimon.com and there'll be something there too. Have a great day. Thanks for lunch.
Thank you.